So for the fifth task, we will have to go to this our API slash v1 slash app.py, and we are going to update uh, this method before request, so that we can add this part to the list of parts that do not need authorization, so that we can be able to access it, because it does not exist yet and we can test it out. And then right here, we are we are going to say that if there is no header, like if this authorization header is none, and also if the session cookie is none, we are going to return about 401. Because okay, let me just if not auth dot session cookie is going to take request. Excuse me. If they are not provided, we are going to return about 401. That is to say that we know that the authorization header is coming from the basic auth. Let's open basic auth. So we see that authorization header from basic auth, is expecting base 64 encoded string. So that is, if it's none, then it means that there is no authentication from basic auth. And then here also, if section cookie is none, that is here, it means there is no authentication from session cookie, which means there is no cookie. So if none of these two are existing, then we return 401, which is unauthorized, which means they are unauthorized for the view. So we are going to test it out here. So here we are setting the auth type, that is here. We're setting the auth type as section authentication, which means we are going to be using section auth. And then we are setting the section name as my section ID. That's the one we did for, where is it? I think it should be here. Yeah, that is for this section art. So the environmental variable is section name. So let's go ahead and run this. And we are going to test it out. I don't know. I'm going to again open my Thunder client. I think it's easier for me. So I'm going to be, and remove this. Try this one first. I get unauthorized, and if I try API, we get okay. And then if we should go and if we try this, copy this. If we try this, we're getting not found. Okay, I believe, yeah, it should be not found. And then if we should try to, let's assume that it is basic odds. If we say user slash me, you're supposed to get unauthorized, because this is not, because of our environmental variable here is the auth type is section auth, not basic auth. So we are supposed to be getting unauthorized. We are getting unauthorized. And then same way, if we should pass in a authorization, and then we say basic and can give it anything or even the right one. If we send, we are getting forbidden because the auth type is section auth. And then lastly, we are going to try to pass a cookie to it. If we pass this cookie again and send, we are getting unauthorized. Hmm. I think we should be getting forbidden, not authorized. Let me see. Section cookie. Let me see. Things can be crazy. Okay, that's funny. So we are getting forbidden here, but we are getting unauthorized here. Hmm. And for the 6 stars, we are going to be overloading this current user method of the auth class. So we are going to overloading it in the section auth class. So what it's going to be doing is going to be returning a user based on the cookie gotten from the section using these two methods that we created, the create section and the no, it should be the section cookie and this other user ID for section ID. So the section cookie is going to be is going to take request, and then it's going to use this the environmental variable that we always set when we are running this. That's this one, which is my section ID, which is the name of the cookie. So we pass it to the request.cookies.get, which we use to grab the value of the cookie, and then we return it. And then we are the value of the cookie when we return it is going to be the section ID. So we are going to use the section ID, and then we are going to pass it to this user ID for section ID, which is going to return the user ID. And then we use the user ID and pass it to user.get, right, to this model, and then call .get method on it, and it's going to return the user that owns the ID. So let's get started. So we are going to say, we are going to first retrieve the section ID by calling self.section cookie, and we are going to pass in request. Session cookie, like I said before, is right here. We pass in request is going to grab the value of the cookie, and then if the value of the cookie is given, is going to return it. If not, we are going to return none, and then we are going to use this one and then pass in the session ID to retrieve the user ID associated with that session ID. So we are going to say user ID is equal to self.user ID 4, and then we pass in the section ID, and then we are going to say to be sure that the session ID is valid and they return the user ID, we are going to say if not user, like if you didn't return any user ID, we are going to return none. Then if a user ID is returned, we are going to say user.get, and then we pass in the user ID, which is going to retrieve the user. Then we save it to the variable user, and finally we return user. So let's go ahead and run this. Before that, you should know that here for the test file, so here we are importing session out user and then request, and we are creating a user email, a password, instance of a user, and then we are assigning these same values to the user.email and password. Then we're calling user.save to persist the changes, and then we're creating an instance of session out, and then we are calling session out.create section, which should be here. So, and we pass the user ID, which is going to generate a section ID for us. Then once a session ID is generated, we print the user ID and session ID, and then we create a flash cap, and then we create a route to test this. So we are going to say that request user is called to the current user, but we know we are using section authentication, which means that the current user is going to take request, and the request is going to be passed to session cookie, which is going to return session ID. And if this goes well, we are going to be getting the user, which means we correctly implemented this method. And then if require user is now, we are going to be getting this, etc. So here alt type is session out, and the section name is my section ID, which means is a session authentication, and we are expecting a cookie. So here I'm going to try to pass a fake cookie and see what we are going to get. For first, so we are getting no user found, which is if this current user did not return any user, we're supposed to be getting no user found. And here we are going to be passing this section ID. Should it be section ID? Section ID, yeah. So we are going to be passing this section ID instead of the fake section ID. We're going to be passing this one because we know that we created this one here, the section ID, and we passed the user ID to this create section, which created the section ID for us. So we printed it out. That's where I'm getting this thing from. So if I say enter, and then we are getting user found with ID that ends with 4D3. So if we should go back up, let's go back up here where the user ID was printed, we see that it's the same. We are getting 4D3.